Okay, now we're recording.
What up? I will say, and we're going to talk on coaching. There are certain things that, coaching is really great for very complex topics, very complex things that we do, but also for very simple things. And you highlighted that now we're recording. I feel like you need a buttonology coach, like someone that can coach you on effective button pushing on things like starting recording and stuff of that nature.
I feel like you
Very
need a
simple stuff.
I feel like you need a fix your face coach. Like uncrooked your nose coach. What do you think about that?
Hmm. What do I think about that?
Says
I think you need a breath coach. Not like a breath, like a breathing coach. I think you need like a breath coach, like brush your teeth. Like I can smell it over the mic.
Are you saying I have stinky breath?
Yeah.
says the two people who were like, ah, man, we want to start a business, but I'm not sure how to check my email. Probably should bring somebody in to do that.
So that's not entirely, I can't create an email, but for as far as checking it, I have years of experience of having 17 email accounts across 7 different classification networks. And, but to set it up or to check it, that's another challenge of mine. Like actually checking the email, that is something that is,
How
I
many
find that to be challenging.
how many unread emails do you have in your inbox right now, David? I'm just
Thousands,
curious. Thousands? Oh my
yeah,
gosh, I'd go.
thousands.
Oh, it would drive me bonkers.
Yeah,
I would.
thousands. Specifically right now, just on one Gmail account, because we have a couple of those, 9,642.
Oh, you have me beat. I have 7,497.
You guys are amazing. You're unbelievable. I would
And I
absolutely go
have
bonkers.
I have
Thank you.
previously, like within the last 2 weeks, archived the years 2006 to 2015.
That's ridiculous. I archived those in the delete folder.
Well,
But
that's
is
what I
this
mean
what
is
we're
I
talking
deleted
about
them.
today, guys? Is this what we're talking about today, guys?
I
No,
think
no,
you
but we all need an efficiency coach. That's what we need. We need an organizational management coach.
It is
So
true.
anybody
It
out
is
there is
true.
listening to this who is really good at organization, reach out to David and Stephen, maybe.
But not through email.
Not,
Yeah,
but
if
not
Not
you
through
through
send me an
email.
email.
email, if you send me an email, there's a high likelihood that I will not read that email ever. Steven will get to it. Let's see, 2006, 2023. Steven will get to it in about 18 years. 18 years, we'll see
Yeah,
your email.
yeah.
uh,
Stephen,
but coaching,
yeah,
in
let's
all
talk about
seriousness,
coaching.
coaching, one of the interesting things that we've been talking about and we've seen in the mastermind, and we've seen a lot of changes. I personally have changed significantly. You rewind the clock 5 years, 6 years for me, like paying for a coach or coaching, the idea of coaching was not only was it foreign, but I was like, yeah, that just sounds like that's crazy. Why would I spend money on that? Why would I invest in that? It wasn't an investment. I would never have used those terms back then. But it's something, and the guys in the group, right? Ninjas in our mastermind group. But it's something that has been completely normalized because we see not only the impact and the power of it, but if you really truly desire to achieve your top level of performance in whatever it is, being a dad, being a husband, being in business, physically, fitness, all these types of things, the best way to short circuit that is to invest and get a coach. And that looks different in many ways, right? Some people are like, wow, I'm not going to hire a one-on-one coach, but I'll pay for a gym membership at a CrossFit and do that in a group like that. That's effectively very similar and probably more expensive than a coach, but it's just the idea of normalizing a coach, which once you do that, you start to look around, you're like, wow, LeBron James has a nutrition, a physical, and a basketball coach. Like that's LeBron James. He's like the best at what he does. And yet he has these people in his corner. And it just is a pretty fascinating conversation to move and why it's so hard to move from not to being a full believer.
Yeah, it's
This is
funny.
one of the
Go ahead, Stephen. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this is one of the areas that this group has really shifted my thinking on in the past year or so. A lot of us are veterans and we come out of the military and seeing kind of my previous self and the world that we lived in, I'm actually really shocked now that the identity that we are handed in the military does not include professional coaching. If you took the corollary of a civilian Fortune 500 company to like a base commander or a wing commander, a group commander, even down to the unit commanders, right? If a Fortune 500 company didn't provide like professional career, if not beyond type of coaching, I think that they would be considered like negligent by their board. It's just something that is so common for high performing individuals in the civilian world that is not in the military world. But then also, it's not prevalent just among like your average career man, in terms of seeking out, like identifying the areas in your life that you want to make gains in, and then going and finding a professional in that area to walk you through those steps, right? Like none of us learned how to play soccer just in our backyard if you wanted to be a good soccer player on a team, right? Like every team as a kid, you have a coach, you have a basketball coach, you have a PE coach. But for some reason, once we leave college, like that piece of our life as a man gets stripped out.
Yeah, and I think, nowadays there's so much information out in the world that a lot of people think that they can kind of just go do it on their own. They can go watch the YouTube videos, or they can go read blogs or listen to a podcast, and then just like, pull themselves up by their bootstraps, like David likes to say a lot, and go do it on their own. But to your point, Stephen, like this mastermind group has almost just normalized the idea of, if you are finding a gap in your life that you want to go get better at, the Kinetic Man goes and like hires a coach. Like, you go find somebody that is knowledgeable, that is like has years of experience and education, and they are trained in that arena to coach you to be better. Like, you go find that person. And that could be an individual inside the mastermind, or it could be someone outside. And like just you alone, like you've taken a ton of action and like identifying the areas where like, yep, I need help in this arena, so I'm going to go seek that out. And that's become normal in this tribe.
Yeah, and I want to be 100% clear. Like, you can, and I do, and have, and continue to go out and get information on and
Sure.
pull books and try to learn, and you can do that. But
Totally.
but what I have found is most effective is to find the person, and that person can also just be like, hey, here's the books you should read, right? Like, it couldn't be a reading thing, but like this person has the experience, and oftentimes the time you save, it really, with coaching, we had a guy on the podcast and he once said it takes months in terms of minimum moments, right? And he's that, like, that's the power of coaching. The power of coaching is the jet fuel. And once you normalize, like, okay, well, if I spend 10 hours with this individual and they're just pouring into me, or I spend 100 hours trying to figure out, and I don't get the experience that this person's going to give me, I spend 100 hours reading and trying to do and like learning on my own and making my mistakes. Well, if that money investment is significant for those 10 hours, but it gives me 90 hours of ability to do the thing and do it right. Like, is that how you think about coaching? And I absolutely do now. Right. And I invest relatively, heavily in time and treasure being coached. And what's interesting is now I can't imagine my life. Like, I kind of start to get like the itch when I don't have a coach, when I'm not actively being coached by somebody to either refine my skills as a coach, or a person, a mastermind member, or company builder, or whatever, or physically, or any of that kind of stuff. Like, I start to like be like, man, I know I need that jet fuel to get me to that next level, if getting to the next level is truly important to me, which that's a different conversation. And you probably should seek a coach out to figure out what's truly important, and talk through those things in all seriousness. Right. Because that's some of the conversation I'm having with some of my clients, is like, they don't even know what's important. Well, if you don't even know it's important because you haven't talked about it, like how do you know what to do every day? Like how do you know what your goals are? And so these things are so critical and very, very life-giving and potentially not potentially and absolutely life-changing. And so we should just normalize it because it's not a hit, right? It's not a hit on you. It's actually a feather in your cap showing how much you're willing to invest to be better.
There was a John Marcomer podcast I listened to recently who he just had a kind of an offhanded comment at the end of it. He said, information is not the problem. Knowledge is not the problem. It's curating it, right? We, in our modern times, swim in knowledge. We have knowledge of ancient and modern science, of Eastern and Western, different types of approaches. It's the how do I digest what is important for me to get to my goal, to identify that goal, that destination out in front of me, and then identify steps between here and there. And those are several different steps, defining success and then breaking it down into pieces, whatever. But I just think that it's so obvious. All of the people that whoever's listening to this, it does not matter what kind of person you are that is listening to this. Think of the person that is a celebrity in your mind. And I guarantee that person, whether it is an influencer, a celebrity, a Hollywood star, a sports figure, or just a high performing Fortune 500 CEO, every single one of those people has multiple coaches in their life helping them get to the next level in all the different areas: health, nutrition, sleep, mental wellness, everything.
And it's honestly it's being willing to buy other people's mistakes, right? It's those
Oh, I like that.
coaches. Those coaches have had the experience. They've had the mistakes, right? And they now can, like, just like Goody said, like fast forward that time slot that it takes. Like you can go do it on your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
It might take you 10 years. You're going to have those exact same mistakes and those learning experiences that coach did. So why not just be willing to pay for that and fast forward yourself to shorten that time period to get there faster, to get further.
Well, you're gonna
Faster.
pay. You're gonna pay for it, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah,
it
sure.
just is depends on how
Yeah.
you. It depends on how you want to pay for it. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna pay for it. That's just part of life. How do you want to pay for it?
Yeah.
And again, we're not here talking about. We're not trying to convince anybody to get a coach. We're not trying to convince anybody to hire us as coach and join our mastermind. Any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's we were talking about it, and we just did a podcast with the original members of our mastermind, and it's just an interesting. We're like, that's a really interesting conversation that like coaching has this in some circles. I would argue in not highly successful circles, coaching has a bad reputation. It's just a very fascinating thing that there's this stigma or whatever. I don't know. I can't even identify it anymore because it's been so long since I felt that way.
It was that way in the military, right? Like
Right.
aviation, Stephen. Like if you went and like seeked counsel, for your marriage, for your health, for your mindset,
Mm-hmm.
PTSD, like anything that you're like seeking counsel on and getting coached, like that was looked negatively upon you. And so
Yeah.
there's so many people that never did that because like they didn't want it to be, uh, hurt your career in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about kind of coaching and hiring a coach, whatever, but you can use me as an example, right? I love my dad. He has been such a positive influence in my life, but he worked really hard at a job that had him sitting all day long. And I would not call him like in the best of health. He's had a heart attack at a fairly young age. And I just saw that and I could see my similar trajectory. And we've talked about health this past year. And I know how to go to the gym. I know how to even do workouts in my own backyard using like my body weight, right? I know how to go on long walks and how to eat healthier, except that I was doing none of those things. And so it's funny how this has changed my perspective. 2 years ago, my wife and I joined a gym and I struggled with $18 a month for a gym. I was like, I don't know, like if I did this for a couple of years, would it be more efficient for me to buy a Type 2 and a spin bike and put it in my basement and use that? And we actually did that. And after listening to some of the guys in the OG house and them saying, I made a choice that this was important to me and I'm going to invest time and treasure in it to make a difference. And it kind of we're all tied to anchoring. And so it retied that anchor. And I went out recently and I hired a personal trainer that is going to cost me about $300 a month. And I'm probably going to use them for about a year. And so, I'm going to do public math here, right? So what is that? $3,600 if I do that right? When I am 70 years old and I have kickstarted this year, would I be willing to pay $3,600? Would any of us be willing to pay $3,600 to have one or two more what we would consider healthy years? Absolutely, yes. Without question, right? And so there was just a shift in my mind of, yes, I'm willing to do that, and I need to do that now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I had a conversation. So same thing. Like I had a health scare not too long ago, and who knows if it was really because of the way I was eating or exercising or whatever. But I just had a conversation this morning with a guy we had on our podcast, and he's like, "Yeah, we can go get a blood panel done. It costs about this much." And he started talking about all the different, tests and levels and like, what you do about this stuff, and like my mind just started like getting blown away. Like I had no idea the stuff that he was talking about, and I could go research all that stuff, and I could go figure it out on my own. And I talked about sleep cycles and eating cycles and all this kind of stuff. I was like, well, can I just hire you and like let's just do this thing? And so like there is a level where like you just level up, right, by going and finding these people to improve your life. So
love it, dude.
Go hire a coach.
Go get a coach. Go get a coach.
Get better.
Because it's awesome. Get better. And really the investment you're willing to make in yourself, which education and coaching is an extension of that. It just simply highlights the level of priority that you have in being better, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line. And I think it's a good testament. So normalize this stuff. It's no hit. You're no less of a man to go get counseling. You're no less of a man to seek marriage advice. And quite the opposite. You may become like the baller husband and dad that you always wanted to be. And what's that worth? I mean, what's that worth? To your point, Stephen, what is what is health truly worth? Do something about it before it's too late.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. It's a good conversation. I like it. I like the normalization of things that are that have barriers to entry that really shouldn't. So Stuart, buttonology and breath coach.
Okay.
Your action items. Me, I guess a crooked nose face coach. If there's one of you out there. And Steven,
that's called a plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
They coach your nose back to straight.
They coach. I've actually had that done. It didn't work. I broke it again. And Steven, an email coach that needs to call you or text you because
right.
You'll never get that email. No. All right, boys.
Good stuff.
Get it.
See you.
Bye.